Bionics Institute was founded by Graham Clark some 30 years ago now as the then Bionic Ear Institute as part of his efforts to develop a cochlear implant. Now, Graham had an insight into how we could insert electrodes deep within the cochlea to reactivate the otherwise quiet nerves in there using electrical stimulation. And that was a great insight he had, but he also realized that he couldn't solve all the problems that there were. He had to work out how to deliver that electrical stimulation safely. He had to work out how to get electrodes in there. He had to work out how to create a device that would last a lifetime for a patient. He also had to work out how to measure the benefit that was being delivered to those patients. And therefore, that's one of the reasons he founded the Bionics Institute, to bring together those multiple disciplinary teams that are required to develop such products. You need the clinical expertise, you need the scientists, you need the engineers, you also need the patients to be critically involved along every part of that journey. And that's the foundation that we've been building on for those last 30 years. He also realized, very importantly, that as a research project, he could help maybe a dozen patients. As a research project, you can't scale, you can't help everyone who needs this kind of intervention. And that's why it's also incredibly important to commercialize any of these innovative ideas that we have. Graham Clark, obviously, innovation led to Cochlear, the company, which has now helped, over 700,000 people worldwide by implanting the device. But the impact is greater when you consider their families, their friends, their relatives who have been able to communicate with them now. So the impact is now in the probably tens of millions rather than tens if that technology had not been commercialized. That's another really critical, important step that we're basing our future work on. Now, after Graham, and the team invented the cochlear implant, we didn't just rest on our laurels here at the Bionics Institute. We continued to, and we still continue to do cutting-edge research in auditory research. So we're still looking at improvements for cochlear implants, how to program more efficiently to improve outcomes. We're also developing new hearing techniques and technologies to test hearing in everyone from young babies hearing their first sounds through people suffering from tinnitus, and also trying to develop drug treatments and gene therapy treatments to try and restore hearing. So we continue that auditory research that's been our foundation for the last 30 years. But as our name suggests, we do more than just ear research now. We took our first steps away from the ear when we started on bionic eye research. So again, substituting a sensory modality. And so instead of vision loss that you have from going blind, we developed a bionic implant to go into your eye. And that device is now also being commercialized, continuing on that theme of commercializing our technologies to help as many people as we can. We took that same insight we'd learned in terms of those multidisciplinary teams, how to stimulate activity, how to record neural activity, and took that work into things that now aren't sensory substitution. So deep brain stimulation for treating Parkinson's disease, we're now working in. Again, we've discovered some very unique ways to program some of these devices to really increase the number of patients we can help. And again, we've managed to spin out that technology into a company so it can be more broadly deployed. We also do sensing technology where we simply record neural activity. Again, this is currently in another of our spin-out companies looking to monitor epilepsy and try and predict when people might have seizures. More recently, we've started to spread this technology to different areas of the body, including vagus nerve stimulation for treating things like inflammatory bowel disease, rheumatoid arthritis, and hopefully even diabetes. I'm sure that'll be the subject of another webinar coming up. But we've also been continuing to improve the technology that we're using to interface with the nervous system. So this is our optogenetics works to try and develop new ways to stimulate, new ways to record from the system. And really that's the common underlying theme that the Institute is interested in. If we can record or stimulate neural activity to help treat a clinical need, that's where we're interested. And that's what leads us into Alzheimer's. It's a condition whereby with magnetic stimulation, we can modify the way that the neural system's working. Thankfully, we have fantastic researchers like Kate around who can actually explain for those of us engineers who don't understand about Alzheimer's, our clinical colleagues and our patient advocates who are really critical parts of that ecosystem. So rather than listen to an engineer talk anymore about areas that he's not very familiar with, I'm going to hand back to Anne.